Saturday morning, bowl of cereal in hand, you're watching your favorite cartoon when something feels off. That scene looks different than you remember. Turns out you're right. Classic cartoons have been quietly edited, banned, and buried for decades. From Tom and Jerry's controversial characters to Disney's locked vault, the 10 biggest censorship moments in animation history reveal just how much of your childhood entertainment was sanitized behind the scenes. Some of these decisions might shock you. 1. Tom and Jerry's Mammy Two Shoes. Here's the thing most people don't realize. If you've watched Tom and Jerry on modern TV, you've never seen the original versions. The housemaid character Mammy Two Shoes was a walking racial stereotype straight out of minstrel shows, complete with exaggerated dialect and appearance that would make your jaw drop today. MGM knew they had a problem by the 1960s. The real kicker? They didn't just edit scenes. They completely redubbed Lillian Randolph's original voice work, replacing her with a generic Irish accent. Some episodes got the full treatment, digitally altering Mammy's appearance entirely or cropping shots to hide her face. What made this especially complex was that Randolph herself was a respected African-American actress who brought dignity to a problematic role. The censorship erased both the stereotype and her performance. Modern streaming services like HBO Max now show completely sanitized versions, and most viewers have never seen what actually aired in the 1940s and 50s. But racial imagery wasn't the only thing networks feared. 2. Popeye's wartime propaganda. You think you know Popeye as the spinach-eating sailor who fights Bluto, but during World War II he was America's animated weapon against fascism. The episodes that disappeared will blow your mind. Popeye literally punched Hitler in the face, turned Japanese soldiers into scrap metal, and promoted war bonds with the fury of 1,000 anchors. You're a Sap, Mr. Jap from 1942 showed Popeye demolishing Japanese forces with gleeful violence that makes modern action movies look tame. Another lost gem had him reducing a Nazi submarine to confetti while whistling his theme song. These weren't subtle allegories. They were full-blown propaganda pieces commissioned by the U.S. Navy. Here's what's wild. After the war ended, these episodes vanished faster than spinach down Popeye's gullet. Networks didn't want to explain why America's favorite sailor was promoting wartime hatred. The Cold War made things even more complicated. Suddenly, showing Russians as enemies wasn't politically convenient either. Most of these episodes exist only in military archives now, completely scrubbed from public consciousness. Speaking of violence, one cartoon pushed boundaries so far that it created a template for censorship. 3. Bugs Bunny's Southern Fried Rabbit. Picture this: Bugs Bunny dressed as a Confederate soldier, complete with gray uniform and rebel yell, trying to cross the Mason-Dixon line past Yosemite Sam. Sounds impossible? It actually aired in 1953, and the fallout changed how networks handled controversial content forever. The episode showed Bugs donning Confederate gear to sneak past Sam, who was guarding the border with cannons and pure Southern fury. What made this especially problematic wasn't just the imagery, it was the timing. This aired during the early civil rights era, when Confederate symbols were becoming lightning rods for racial tension. CBS started editing the episode in the 1960s, cutting the Confederate uniform scenes entirely. By the 1990s, Cartoon Network banned it completely. What's fascinating is how this single episode created the template for "when in doubt, cut it out" that still governs animation today. The original unedited version exists in collectors' circles, a reminder of when cartoons tackled controversial topics head-on. But sometimes the problem wasn't what they showed, but how they showed it. 4. Disney's Song of the South segments. Disney's dirtiest secret isn't a conspiracy theory, it's sitting in their vault, and it's called Song of the South. The 1946 film mixed live action with animation, giving us beloved characters like Brer Rabbit and Brer Fox. But here's the twist. Those animated segments were quietly separated from their controversial source and scattered across Disney's empire like hidden treasure. The original film featured Uncle Remus, an elderly black man telling plantation stories to white children in post-Civil War Georgia. The racial dynamics were so problematic that Disney CEO Bob Iger called the film not appropriate in today's world. But those Brr Rabbit cartoons, pure gold that Disney wasn't about to waste. The real kicker came in 2020 when Disney announced Splash Mountain's complete reimagining, finally acknowledging what critics had argued for decades. Here, the Uncle Remus connection was too toxic to survive even in animated form. While Disney buried some content, Warner Brothers took a much more dramatic approach. 5. Looney Tunes. Censored 11. Warner Brothers made a decision in 1968 that sent shockwaves through animation history. They completely withdrew 11 Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies cartoons from distribution forever. Not edited, not sanitized, but completely banned. These became known as the Censored 11, and what's in them will make you understand why networks still break into cold sweats. Coal Black and the Seven Dwarfs was perhaps the most notorious, a World War II parody of Snow White, featuring every racial stereotype imaginable, complete with jazz, soundtrack, and characters that defy modern comprehension. All this in Rabbit Stew showed Bugs Bunny outwitting a black hunter drawn in the most offensive caricature style possible. These weren't subtle, they were full-throttle minstrel show material animated by Hollywood's finest artists. Here's what's fascinating: Warner Brothers didn't gradually phase these out. They made a corporate decision to bury them completely. Unlike Disney's vault strategy, these cartoons became animation's forbidden fruit. The only legal way to see them today is through scholarly research or museum screenings, often with extensive historical context and warnings. The controversy exploded again when Whoopi Goldberg provided introductions for some Warner releases, acknowledging the problematic content while defending historical preservation. It sparked debates about whether erasing offensive history serves justice or just makes us forget uncomfortable truths. But not all censorship happened decades later. Sometimes networks panicked in real time. 6. Scooby-Doo's Real Monsters. You think Scooby-Doo was always a kid's show about unmasking fake monsters? Think again. The original Hanna-Barbera concept was genuinely terrifying, designed to give children legitimate scares before revealing the human culprit. CBS executives took one look at the pilot footage and basically said, absolutely not. The network's Standards and Practices department went ballistic when they saw the original monster designs. We're talking about creatures that wouldn't look out of place in horror movies. Grotesque, genuinely frightening apparitions that would have traumatized Saturday morning audiences. Parent groups were already complaining about nightmares from far milder content, and CBS wasn't about to deal with that backlash. What's wild is that some of the original footage still exists in Hanna-Barbera's archives. Animators who worked on the show have described scenes that would make modern horror fans jealous. Scooby-Doo as a legitimate thriller series. Sometimes censorship didn't just change content, it created entirely new characters. 7. The Flintstones cigarette commercials. Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble were chain smokers who pushed tobacco harder than any Mad Men character. And if you've never seen these commercials, you've missed one of animation's most surreal chapters. During the Flintstones' first 2 seasons, Winston's cigarettes sponsored the show, and our beloved Stone Age characters became Madison Avenue's prehistoric pitchmen. Picture this: Fred and Barney taking cigarette breaks during their own cartoon, lighting up Winston's while extolling the virtues of tobacco. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should, they'd croon, puffing away in their living rooms, while Wilma and Betty presumably developed secondhand smoke-related illnesses. These weren't subtle product placements. They were full-blown tobacco advertisements featuring family-friendly characters. The real kicker? These aired during prime time when children were definitely watching. The 1960s were a different era, when doctors appeared in cigarette ads and smoking was considered sophisticated rather than deadly. Hanna-Barbera didn't see any contradiction between wholesome family entertainment and tobacco promotion. But product placement wasn't the only adult content that got sanitized. 8. Betty Boop's sexuality. Betty Boop started as animation's first sex symbol, a jazz-age flapper who winked, wiggled, and boop-boop-a-dooped her way through risque adventures that would make modern animators blush. Then the Hays Code arrived in 1934, and Hollywood's moral guardians castrated cartoon sexuality forever. Pre-code Betty was scandalous. Short skirts, exposed garters, suggestive dancing, and storylines involving everything from drug addiction to domestic violence. Max Fleischer's animators drew her with obvious sexual appeal, and audiences ate it up. She represented the liberated woman of the 1920s, unapologetically sexual and independent. Episodes were re-edited to remove suggestive content, and new cartoons featured Betty in domestic situations rather than nightclub adventures. The transformation destroyed what made Betty special. She went from cultural icon to generic cartoon character, losing the edge that made her revolutionary. While some characters lost their edge, others lost entire storylines. 9. Mighty Mouse's cocaine. In 1988, CBS nearly destroyed Mighty Mouse over a flower-sniffing scene that paranoid activists claimed showed cocaine use. This wasn't subtle censorship, it was moral panic at its most ridiculous, proving that networks would sacrifice artistic integrity over the flimsiest accusations. The episode The Littlest Tramp showed Mighty Mouse sniffing a crushed flower, a romantic gesture that animator Ralph Bakshi intended as innocent. Enter Donald Wildman, a Mississippi reverend who launched a crusade claiming the scene depicted drug use. His American Family Association bombarded CBS with complaints demanding the cocaine-snorting superhero be removed from children's television. CBS panicked spectacularly. They edited the flower-sniffing scene from future broadcasts and launched an internal investigation. This controversy marked peak censorship paranoia, where networks would rather butcher content than face activist pressure. The edited version aired for years, with viewers never seeing Mighty Mouse's innocent romantic gesture. But the most shocking censorship might surprise you. 10. Speedy Gonzales Cartoon Network banned Speedy Gonzales in 1999, calling him an offensive Mexican stereotype. There was just one problem: Mexico disagreed. The backlash from Latino audiences was so fierce that it forced networks to confront whether cultural sensitivity had gone too far. Speedy embodied every Mexican stereotype imaginable: sombrero, exaggerated accent, love of cheese, and lightning speed that supposedly represented Latino work ethic. Cultural critics argued he perpetuated harmful images of Mexican people as lazy, simple, and comic relief for American audiences. But Mexican viewers saw something different. To them, Speedy was a hero who always outsmarted his American antagonists, a clever underdog who used his speed and wit to triumph over bigger, dumber enemies. Mexican audiences loved that their representative was the fastest mouse in the world, not a victim, but a victor. The controversy exploded when Hispanic advocacy groups defended Speedy, arguing that banning positive Latino representation was worse than tolerating imperfect stereotypes. Cartoon Network quietly reversed the ban, and Speedy returned to television with minimal fanfare. Which brings us to the real question, oh no. From racial caricatures to flower-sniffing controversies, classic cartoons carried baggage we're still unpacking today. Which censored moment shocked you most? Hit subscribe for more animation secrets.